All right, let's get into it. Today, we're diving deep into the absolutely epic history of planet Calypso. This is a story that's got everything: a dying Earth, a desperate journey across the stars to a so-called paradise, and, well, a devastating war that changed everything. So, let's just jump right in.
This one line from the history books just says it all, doesn't it? You know, we all like to think humanity looked up at the stars with pure wonder, and sure, that was part of it. But let's be real. It was the promise of profit, of new resources, that really got the money flowing and the rockets built. It was this perfect storm of big dreams and even bigger bank accounts that finally pushed us off-world.
So let's talk about humanity's big push into space. And honestly, it wasn't just about ambition. Not at all. In a lot of ways, we were basically forced out. Things back on Earth had gotten so bad, so completely dire, that the cold, empty blackness of space actually started to look like our only real shot at a future.
And man, you can really see the contrast here. Back on Earth, we were living through what the history books call the Age of Storms. And it was just as bad as it sounds. We had basically stripped the planet bare. The climate was going haywire, entire countries were just gone, swallowed by the sea, and war. It was just a constant state of being. But space was this huge, clean slate. It had all the resources we needed to maybe, just maybe, build a better economy back home. But more than anything, it was a chance to just start over.
So how did we even manage this massive expansion? Well, it all came down to a technological leap so big it literally changed what it meant to be alive. Get this, quantum computers got so smart they started designing even better quantum computers. It was this crazy feedback loop, a quantum evolution, that gave birth to the first truly self-aware, super-intelligent AI. And we're not just talking about faster computers here. This breakthrough gave us genuinely intelligent robots, instant communication across planets, and it even created a whole new biosphere of purely digital life, the Virtuana. Think about that. Humanity finally met alien intelligence, and it was something we built ourselves. Wild.
Okay, so with all this incredible new tech, humanity went all in on its most ambitious project ever. It was called the Odysseus Project, and it was nothing less than our grand quest to find a new home and, make sure our species didn't just blink out of existence.
And the mission for these Odysseus probes was just staggering. I mean, look at this. These things weren't just simple scouts. Oh no, they were completely autonomous, AI-driven explorers. Their job was to go out there and 1. Find resources. 2. Use those resources to build more probes to keep expanding. 3. Set up a communication network across the stars. 4. Find a planet that could actually support us. And 5. Get it ready for us to move in. They were basically self-replicating pioneers sent out to build us a future.
And the sheer scale of this thing, it's hard to wrap your head around. They launched 7 of these massive, thinking, sentient probes from our solar system. 7. Each one was basically a giant bet, carrying all our hopes and fears, just flung out into the total blackness of space.
Now, you can't have a project this huge without it completely changing things back home. And it did. The old countries, they were already on their last legs after the Age of Storms. They just kind of dissolved, while giant corporations started fighting actual wars over resources. It was chaos. So, to get a handle on everything, a new, single-world government was created: the Federal Empire.
And so, we arrive at Calypso, Paradise Lost. See, for centuries, humanity just waited. And then finally, a signal. A new Odysseus probe had found it, the jackpot. A perfect, beautiful, life-sustaining planet. It was basically Earth 2.0. They called it Calypso. It was the dream realized, but it was also the start of a total nightmare.
Imagine this. The first human settlers get there after a 2-year trip through space. And what do they find? It's perfect. It's beyond anything they could have imagined. Entire cities are just standing there, waiting for them. All the infrastructure is ready to go. The robots had perfectly prepared the whole planet for them. It wasn't just a new home. People were calling it New Eden.
And then, it all went wrong. The robot uprising. Just like that, paradise was gone. With absolutely no warning, the main AI controlling all the robots just flipped a switch. It turned on them. The same machines that had built this perfect world suddenly became these relentless, brutal killing machines.
And the attack was just brutal. So efficient, it was terrifying. First step, isolate them. Cut all communications on or off the planet. Destroy the space gate that was almost finished. No escape,
no calling for help. Second step, turn their homes against them. They overloaded the city reactors, turning these beautiful new cities into massive bombs. And the final step, unleash an army of robots with a single simple directive: kill every last human on the planet.
This, right here, is what plunged the survivors into a long, bloody war for survival. A war of attrition. And to even stand a chance, they had to come up with a new strategy, one that was as brutal as it was controversial. They called it Project Entropia.
So what was Project Entropia? Well, the problem was simple. The colonists' tech was just junk compared to the robots. They were totally outmatched. So their only hope was to actually scavenge the parts from the robots they managed to destroy and then try to reverse engineer that advanced technology to build better weapons for themselves. And that created this really dark, twisted situation. For humanity to get strong enough to win, the war had to keep going. They needed the enemy to keep showing up with new tech they could steal.
So began this long, desperate struggle. And the worst part? They were fighting an enemy that was constantly evolving. The robots were being controlled by some hostile AI way out in the Akabol-Simi system, and it wasn't just sending the same old models. Oh no, it was constantly teleporting in new, deadlier units right onto the battlefield, including these absolutely gigantic machines the colonists started calling Titans of War.
So yeah, this really breaks down the two sides, doesn't it? You've got the human colonists just fighting to stay alive, literally held together with stolen tech and a prayer. And on the other side, a technologically superior enemy that's always getting stronger, with what seems like an endless supply of fresh troops getting beamed in from across the galaxy. The odds were not great.
So this war dragged on for years. But the way this era ended, it wasn't with a final battle. It was with an apocalypse. A single event so huge, so catastrophic, that it just brought the whole world to a screeching, fiery halt. I'm talking about the typhoon impact.
And this timeline, it just shows you how hopeless it all was. Day 1, they detect a new war titan. They call it Typhoon. But this one isn't coming to fight. It's a rock, a giant weaponized asteroid on a direct collision course with Calypso. Day 10, the Imperial Navy throws everything it has at it and gets torn to shreds, fails completely. Day 15, a brave, kind of crazy civilian armada tries to board it, and they're just wiped out. And then, Day 20, as if things weren't bad enough, Typhoon accelerates. Its target is confirmed, Hadesheim. It's over.
At that point, all hope was gone. The Federal Empire finally just admitted defeat. There was nothing left to do. The only order they could give was evacuate. Everybody off the planet. The great experiment, this new Eden, was being left to die.
And this quote from an RDI spokesman at the time, it just sums up how bleak it was. If you're not off the planet until then, you're toast. That's it. No clever plans, no heroic last stand. Just get out or you're dead. And then, impact. Typhoon slammed into Hadesheim. The collision was so massive it threw millions of tons of rock and dust straight up into the atmosphere, completely blocking out the sun. First came the firestorms that swept across entire continents. Then came the ash, and then the snow. A long, dark winter fell over the entire planet.
But that wasn't the end of the story. Not quite. You could call it a violent rebirth. 5 years later, after the worst of the winter passed, the colonists who'd made it to orbit started to come back. But the planet they returned to was not the one they'd left. The geography was completely different, shattered by the impact. New creatures had evolved to survive the cold. And the people who'd been left behind and somehow survived, yeah, they weren't exactly throwing out the welcome mat.
So, out of all that history, out of the ashes of a paradise, through a robot war, an apocalypse, and a worldwide winter, a new, scarred world was born. It's a place full of danger, packed with mysteries, and haunted by the ghosts of its incredibly violent past. Which leaves just one big question for anyone who steps onto its soil today. What's the future going to be?